All right. So welcome everybody. Again, we are doing speaking interview in this class, part 3. And I was saying that, yeah, I want a band 9. I think we all do. And I'm going to give you some tips on what you can do to get that band 9. And I was just saying that the lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. So I'll show you those websites super fast. This is the general IELTS here with the green background. You can click that big red button to join us there. This is the academic one here with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join us there. On both of those websites, you can practice speaking with other students in chat for free by clicking on this button here, the the student partner speaking. You can click on that, and then once you click on that student partner speaking, then you can chat with other students. If you have any questions, just send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com and I will happily respond. Gen 9X, no, this is not an old video. I'm live right now, so I hope I'm not stuck in some sort of a time loop or in a past time. There's only about 5 seconds delay between you and I. All right, everyone. So we have lots of lessons coming up next week. Our schedule, January 30th to February 6th. No classes tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday. That's usual. And then I'm back on Wednesday, February 3rd. And classes all the way until February 6th, live classes. Of course, you can check out videos on the channel. And of course, to get our full video library, again, check out our websites, join those premium packages. All right, speaking part 3, this is speaking. Let's speak. And also repeat. So copy my intonation, my pronunciation. If you hear new words, write them down. Okay. All right. Yeah, we just did part 2, speaking. Last class, 30 minutes ago, we finished. And let's review part 2, just so you have a good idea of what the topic is. Part 3 questions are always related to part 2. So your part 2 response is very important for your part 3 questions, okay? You ideally want to make connections between your part 2 and part 3 responses. All right, so here's the part 2 cue card. Let's just go over it. Again, don't just listen to me, but speak and repeat. So describe a good law in your country. What is the law? How did you learn about it? Whom does this law affect? Why is this a good law? And what would be the consequences of not having it? And here was our response. So repeat after me. A truly beneficial law which was introduced back in 2010 in Hungary is a ban on smoking tobacco in public places such as bars and restaurants. Prior to this law, people were constantly smoking indoors before, during, and after their meals and drinks, creating clouds of secondhand smoke and not only discomforting non-smokers, but also causing an increase in respiratory disease, namely lung cancer. This had led to a decline in revenue for many hospitality venues, as well as put strain on healthcare system. It was therefore almost inevitable that the government and society mitigate this harmful behavior by banning the consumption of tobacco in public areas for the interest of the majority. Through a massive campaign effort, a ton of advertising, and strict regulation in the form of fines, between 2010 and now, the Hungarian government has successfully put an end to people lighting up in public spaces, especially indoor venues. Law officials were not only fining those who smoke $50 for breaking this law, but even more importantly, the venue owners who ignored this law are fined $5,000. As a result, the air is now fresh when families go out to enjoy their dinner at a restaurant. They no longer need to worry about their children breathing secondhand smoke or being negatively influenced by seeing smokers. And restaurant owners are experiencing an increase in revenue. Had this law not been introduced a decade ago, there would likely be even more problems with people's health, and eventually the healthcare infrastructure may become unsustainable. This could lead to dire results for the functioning of society. People could be left without treatment, and the economy can even collapse. All right. So at this point, the examiner would say, okay, that's the end of part 2. Your time is up. I'll stop you there. Now we will continue with part 3. For part 3, I'll ask you a couple questions related to your response and some questions connected to this topic. Okay? All right. Past, present, future, that works for some questions, doesn't work for some other questions. It works for this one as we discussed last class. All right, so now we have part 3. And before part 3 starts, at this point, examiners usually want to make sure that you're being original and you're not just giving memorized answers, okay? So they're going to ask you a question. And what kind of a question do you think the examiner might ask about your response here? So it's good to kind of predict these when you're practicing at home. What would be a question in connection to this response that the examiner might ask? Think about that, okay? And these questions are usually very typical kind of question that they might ask. Okay, Carolina, very good. So Carolina says, has this law impacted you in any kind of positive or negative way? Ferdov says, do you obey this law? Yeah, so has this law impacted you in any positive or negative way? That's a very good question, absolutely. So how does the law personally affect you? Yeah, and what could be an answer for that? Okay, Juan Pablo, they probably wouldn't ask that because you're talking about your own country. Okay. Oh, it says, can you tell me about how smoking has changed in your country after this law? Yeah, I think we have something like that in the response, but that's possible. So how has this affected smokers in your country? And what is their opinion about it? That could be another one. Okay. All right, so let's answer these two. So let's answer this one first, okay? Has this law impacted you in any positive or negative way? Give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. So think about how this law has impacted you. And again, for the IELTS, you don't need the truth. You just need to show fluency. So probably the easiest to just say that it's affected you in some very positive way and then explain how. And then give an example, okay? Especially because it's a personal question. So with a personal question, it's a good idea to include an example. Very good. Harshini says, well, it's been an extreme positive in my life because since this law has been introduced, I've stopped smoking. Okay. And Yucker says, I smoke using my nose. I'm guessing that's a negative, right? I'm not sure how that helps, but anyway. All right. Harshini says, positive because you stopped smoking. That's very clever if you no longer smoke. Okay. Yeah, Ferdov's very good. So this law has been exceptionally beneficial in my life because it has helped me to quit smoking and now I feel much healthier and I actually enjoy getting into more in-depth conversations with my friends and family when we're out on the town for a meal rather than paying attention to my habit. Okay, and then you can include an example. So just last week, I had a nice meal on a patio with some friends, and it was great to breathe fresh air. Okay, so there it is. Yeah, it's a good answer. All right, so visualize it, be there, be present, and then you can come up with a good answer. So repeat after me. Has this law impacted you in any positive or negative way? This law has been exceptionally beneficial in my life because it has helped me to quit smoking, and now I feel much healthier and actually enjoy getting into more in-depth conversation with my friends and family when we're out on the town for a meal rather than paying attention to my cigarette. Just last week, I had a nice meal on the patio with some friends, and it was great to breathe fresh air. Yeah. All right. So lots of vocabulary, clear explanation, example. That's what you need. So if you want a band 9, that's what you have to practice, okay? This is the topic of this session. It's I want a band 9. And when you want a band 9, you have to produce exceptional English. It doesn't mean just accurate English, but it means great communication. And that starts with answers, explanations, and examples, right? Janelle says, yes, it has affected me in a positive way because I have allergies and a very strong allergy for cigarettes. After this law, I can now attend and go to restaurants and enjoy meals. Last Sunday, my family and I had a fantastic meal on an outdoor patio eating some burgers, and I didn't have to worry about suffocating. Okay, good, Janelle, very nice. All right, and then the next question is, how has this affected smokers in your country, and what is their opinion about it? Okay, and again, you have to be creative, and give a full answer. Okay. Arda says, most smokers didn't like this law because they are addicted to smoking, but some of them stopped smoking, and it's nice to hear that they quit. Arda, good answer. Paraphrase. Okay, Arda? So use different words. Don't say stop smoking, stop smoking, stop smoking. So quit smoking or quit using tobacco. Like myself, we can make the connection here now, right? Alex says, well, most people disagreed with the law, but some people gained benefit because they started to exercise more in open spaces. Stuti says it's absolutely not only positive for a person, but also for society, especially for teenagers who start this habit because of peer pressure. Okay, I think that was for the previous one, Stuti. Juan Pablo says, at first they complain, but now they understand that it's not only about them, but also about people around them. Also, they smoke less, and some of them, like myself, have stopped smoking, which is wonderful. Very good. Okay, yeah, Juan, absolutely. And I think those societies that have this law, we actually saw this, right? At first, people were like, well, if I'm going out to a pub and I'm drinking, I should be allowed to smoke and all this. And everybody was angry. And then they're kind of like, actually, you know what? It's better. Right? So people realize that most people realize that not smoking in public places is actually better for everyone. Okay. Ferdov says, although some smokers were furious about this restriction, most individuals are happy as they are now breathing fresh air, and it ensures that their children's health stays safe, like when their children are in cafes with their parents. Yeah, very good, Ferdov. Yeah, okay, good logic, right? And so We can say initially, many smokers were furious when this law was implemented, as they are addicted, and this creates much tension when they cannot smoke, especially when drinking alcohol. But as time passed, most smokers came to both agree and like this legislation, as it has helped them to decrease their use of tobacco or even quit, like myself. And public spaces have become cleaner and more enjoyable. Okay. So here's the question again. So how has this affected smokers in your country, and what is their opinion about it? Well, I'm not sure if I erased that by accident, but anyway, repeat after me. So at first, most smokers were furious when this law came into effect, especially when drinking alcohol, because of their addiction. But as time passed, most smokers came to both agree and like this legislation, as it has helped them to decrease their use of tobacco or even quit, like myself, and public spaces have become cleaner and more enjoyable. Okay, I'm going to teach you an interesting idiom here. Okay. When people become furious or angry about a situation, a nice, interesting idiom that you can use to express that is to be up in arms, okay? So most smokers were up in arms when this law first came into effect. Okay, so it's good to use some short idioms. Don't use really long, complicated idioms in your responses. Those can lead to a lot of difficulties, especially for comprehension. So your band score can really kind of landslide. But if you use small, kind of easier idioms, that can really help you to increase your score. However, you do have to make sure that you're using them correctly. So only use idioms if you are 110% sure it's accurate, and use them sparingly, okay? So not a lot of them, just here and there, one or two carefully placed idioms, all right? So up in arms, okay? Again, make sure you write down these idioms when you see them, okay? So to be up in arms, okay? All right, so after this point, the examiner will say, okay, now let's talk a little bit more on the topic of part 2. For part 3, let's talk about policing. Okay, so it's law enforcement. Okay. Furious, Sandeep, it means to be very angry. Okay. All right. Okay, yeah, that's a good tip, Mahmoud. I'll take that into consideration to make some videos on just idioms for IELTS. Sure, why not? Okay, so here we go. Let's talk about policing, and then the examiner will ask you, what are the most important responsibilities of police officers? So, what are the most important responsibilities of police officers? Give me a nice full sentence answer for that. So what are the most important responsibilities of police officers? Okay. So sometimes these questions in part 3 sound a little bit complicated, but they're basically asking you simpler questions. This one's basically asking you, like, what should police officers do? What's their kind of main job, if you will? Okay, what's their main job? Now, IELTS examiners won't paraphrase, so you have to just simplify the question in your mind, okay? Kevin Bui says the foremost duty of the police force is to administer laws and justice. These can often be carried out by propaganda, like organizing educational campaigns, or physical means, like arresting offenders. Without the presence of these personnel, I believe crime rates would spiral out of control and people's lives would be threatened. Very nice, a full sentence answer, Kevin. Kevin, think about including an example. Okay, so think about sliding that smooth example in there. Now, this is a follow-up question. You won't hear this question yet. You'll hear it only after you give this response. Alex says the protection of law enforcement and people's security are the two main duties that officers perform, police officers perform. In addition to this, they organize many public events and accompany government officials and political leaders to keep them safe. Very good, Alex. Abhishek, the imperative duties of an officer of the law are to enforce rules, which includes the protection of citizens and property, also to reduce the cause of crime and problems in society, such as imposing a hefty fine on people who are smoking in public places. Very nice, Abhishek. There's that beautiful connection that I was looking for. Very good. Okay. Nick Hill says the significant duties of police officers are to keep everybody safe and make sure that people are following rules. Since when banning smoking was introduced, they are enforcing this law to make sure that people follow it. Yeah, another way you can say that is adhere. You adhere to a law. Okay. All right. So Nick Hill, you're answering the follow-up question with the next one, so we'll leave that for now. All right. Let's take a couple more. Rashika says the imperative accountability of police officers are enforcing local, state, and federal laws, interviewing victims, apprehending and transporting suspects. Very nice, Rashika. So there's no perfect answer to this. A lot of answers suffice. What's most important is that you clearly express yourself. Rashika, you're doing a good job. Careful with your grammar. Nice use of vocabulary, Rashika. So enforcing local, state, federal laws, interviewing victims, and apprehending and transporting suspects and criminals, right? Very good. Okay. Sandeep says the duties of cops are that they behave strictly for those who break the law and fine those who, for instance, break the smoking law and smoke in public places. Okay, Sandeep, don't cut yourself short. Make sure you express yourself to the fullest, okay? So, yes, we want that band 9, and to get that band 9, you have to have clarity. One way to create clarity in your responses in part 2 is to think about it like you're explaining a concept, like you're talking about Facebook to your grandfather, okay, or social media. You have to be very careful with the way you choose your words and express your ideas. Otherwise, grandpa's going to be like, social media, what the who now? So you have to be really like, okay, grandpa, so social media is basically where a person, like a photo album, can share the photo album with hundreds of people at the same time. It's kind of like taking photocopies of your photo album and sending it to 100 different people, but doing this through the television, right? And then grandpa's going to be like, aha, I get it. Okay, so you have to be really strategic with your thinking and your choice of words, especially in part 3. Okay. Gian Titan says, in my opinion, the major responsibility of police officers is to perform justice. For instance, if there's a dispute on the street, the representative of the laws should stand up for the public and fix this kind of situation. Absolutely, Titan. Yeah. Okay. Good. Arda, some students do practice before the classes. They look at the description of the video. Some students actually just have been really practicing a lot in these live classes and can produce answers very quickly to these questions. They know what to do. So there's a whole range, Arda, of some students preparing questions before and some during the class, and some people even after the class. It's good to do all of those, Arda. Okay. All right. Gen 9 says, the main responsibility of the police is to tease every possible person and check whether they are following the implemented law or not. You mean observe. It's observe is the better word to use there. Okay. Okay. So what are the most important responsibilities of the police officers? That is an interesting question, because law enforcement officials have many responsibilities. However, if I had to choose just a couple, I would say that their prime directives are to serve and protect, just as it is written on the side of police cruisers in the US and Canada. By this, I mean that they are public servants first, and they need to make sure that citizens are kept safe and respected. Also, they must protect citizens from harm, such as secondhand smoke in public places. All right. So here we go. Repeat after me. Let's talk about policing. What are the most important responsibilities of police officers? That's an interesting question, because law enforcement officials have many responsibilities. However, if I had to choose just a couple, I would say that their prime directives are to serve and protect, just as it is written on the side of police cruisers in the US and Canada. By this, I mean that they are public servants first, and they need to make sure that citizens are kept safe and respected. Also, they must protect citizens from harm, such as secondhand smoke in public spaces. Okay? Secondhand smoke, Ramin, means that you're breathing the smoke that somebody else is blowing in your face in a restaurant. And the reason we're saying that, Ramin, is because our part 2 response up here was about a law, and the law that we talked about was banning smoking in secondhand places. Okay? Harshini, prime directive means your main objective, your biggest responsibility. Okay? All right. So that is some good use of vocabulary, some complex grammar, lots of explanation. Just out of curiosity, I'm just curious, how many countries do you have police that have serve and protect, of course in your own language, written on the side of the police cars or even on the uniform of the police officers. I was always wondering about this, whether this is universal or if it's just in US, Canada. To serve and to protect. You'll see that very clearly on the side of the police cars. Police cars, more accurately, are called police cruisers. Police cruisers. Okay. Juan Pablo says, not here in Argentina. Okay. Islam says, yeah, in Algeria, it's written to serve and protect. Yeah, because I'm curious, because it's a very diplomatic way to do it. Okay. Yeah, Carolina says, not in Colombia or Argentina, not in India, not in Uzbekistan. I wonder what's written. I'm sure there's something, but maybe different. Not in Italy. Okay, Harshini says, yeah, in India it says to serve and protect. Yeah, I think in Britain too. So from Britain it might have kind of creeped into some parts of India as well. Okay. So Erkin says it's not universal. All right, well, maybe one day it will be, hopefully, because that is the main role of the police, to serve and protect. Your taxes pay for the police, right? All right, so here we go, everyone. Next question, follow-up question. Okay, so you explain what their main responsibilities are, and then the examiner might follow up with something like, if police are unable to perform these duties, what are the consequences? And again, don't get too philosophical. Your main goal here is just to get a band 9, all right? Don't get too passionate. Just give an answer, all right? So if police are not able to perform these duties, what are the consequences? Okay. So Kevin says failure in fulfilling these commitments would first of all put ordinary people's lives at risk, as a spate of crimes is inevitable. Spike in the rate of crimes? I'm not sure about that word spate, Kevin, but maybe. In the long run, the public could harbor critical thoughts about the integrity and the leadership of the government, leading to social unrest and political anarchy. Absolutely. Yeah, Kevin, I agree 100%, right? Police are often the foundation, the glue that holds society together. Police enforcement. Yeah. Ferdov says, if police lack to protect people, laws, and enforce laws and regulations, they will lose their jobs. And this lawlessness could lead to devastating results like economic collapse, and crime rates will increase tenfold. Yeah. So anarchy is a good word here. That was nice vocabulary by Kevin. Anarchy is when it's everybody for themselves. Oa says, if police officers neglect their duties, the results will be serious and threaten to social security, and the crime rates like stealing and drug use, murder will increase. Therefore, society may collapse. Yeah, it's interesting to think that humans would fall apart without police. All right. I love how there's so many different ways that students are expressing themselves. Every comment I read is unique in its own way, and I'm hoping that all of our viewers are paying attention to this, that you all have your own style of speaking. So English has a massive vocabulary. I think the common English words now internationally are something like 1.6 million words in everyday use, depending on what you're talking about, computers, law, and so on. So English now has by far the greatest vocabulary. I think the number is 10. So every single day, 10 new words are officially added to the English dictionary, which is not surprising. It's the language, it's the global language now, right? So you all have a very unique diction or style of speaking, which is fantastic. And it's important to develop that. And the way you develop that is by focusing on your communication skills as well as your words and grammar, okay? Jian says, if police fail to execute their responsibilities, it would lead to severe results. As I mentioned for the last question, people would feel insecure under an unstable societal circumstance. Very good. Erkin Salyev says, in case of unsustained duties fulfilled by police, crimes are going to be out of control and the police can behave unpredictably, which further creates fear and anarchy in society. This can be observed in some places in the world, like in the ghettos in Brazil, right? Okay. Onkar says, well, if they are not serving and protecting the public as to their purpose, this will put people's lives at risk and it will result in the suspension of those officers. It will also create a bad image in society. Very good, Onkar. Just one time, not 3 times, okay? Don't spam, students. It's doesn't work well for everybody, okay? So I don't really want to police the chat so much as well. All right. Now, again, it's IELTS, so don't get too passionate. Stick to strategy. This is a conditional if police are unable to. So make sure to state a conditional, all right? Given that cops are not able to perform as they should, okay? So here, I'm paraphrasing this. If police are unable to perform their duties, given that cops are unable or not able to perform as they should, unable is better than not able. So if I'm recording this on my phone, then that's a correction that I would make, is change not able to unable, okay? So given that cops are unable to perform as they should, society will suffer because enforcing laws helps to maintain stability and quality of life. If this is not so, then anarchy can ensue and crime rates can spiral out of control. People will start to fear for their safety and revolt against government. Okay, there has been precedence of this in the past with certain societies. All right. Spiral. There we go. All right, so here we go. Repeat after me. If police are unable to perform these duties, what are the consequences? Given that cops are unable to perform as they should, society will suffer because enforcing laws helps to maintain stability and quality of life. If this is not so, then anarchy can ensue and crime rates can spiral out of control. There's another kind of idiomatic expression for you. Spiral out of control. It means to completely lose control, okay? People will start to fear for their safety and revolt against government. There has been precedence. Precedence is like an example, okay? It's a nice technical word for that. Precedence. Precedence. There we go. Of this in the past with certain societies, okay? All right. So remember those words, precedence, spiral, out of control. All right. Okay. Next question. And these are interesting. So again, answer, explain, example. Okay. Which types of training are important for police officers to receive? Now, again, in part 3, okay, be original. Within being original, when you hear a question that's kind of unique or you've never thought about it, it's totally okay to say, That's an interesting question. I'm sure there is a ton of training that officers need and get. Okay, let me think of some. All right, so be original. You can definitely start in this way. I mean, it's not every day that somebody asks you, oh, what kind of training should police get? Okay, it's a fair question. Most of us, I think, can come up with an answer, but we might need a minute or a few seconds at least to think about it. Okay. All right. So OS says police officers should undergo physical training to be fit so that they can perform in their job. And they should also get theoretical and psychological training to improve their critical thinking to solve problems. Oh, it's very good. I made lots of corrections to your grammar and word choice, but your ideas are good. Keep going. Okay. Ferdov says running, lifting weights, mastering gun control, driving, psychology lessons, learning new laws are many of the skills which are vital to their training as they assist to perform their police duties productively and safely. Right? Very good. Okay. Rams Alamir says one of the most important ones is to be able to defend themselves, exercise jumping, practice more, and practice physical training to be healthy. Okay. Yeah, so obviously mental and physical health, right? So both mental and physical health. Rashika says training, which is important for police officers to receive, is learning laws, criminal investigation, traffic control, self-defense, first aid, and even computer skills. In my area, police officers do 3 years of such training before given their badges. Okay, very good. Suman Lama says, thank you for the question. Don't thank me for the question. You paid the IELTS test center to ask you these questions. Don't need to thank them. It's strange. Okay, so cops have to take some training because they aren't common people and they have to protect their country's residents. I think firstly they have to learn how to behave with the public. Yeah, it's called public relations, Suman. Public relations. Lead with that. So start with that. Police officers must be trained in public relations so that they can find peaceful resolutions to conflict. Okay, so start with that. Don't thank the examiner for the question. You don't get points for that. Okay. All right. Okay. Pryla says, I might say, let me get you back here, Pryla. Okay, Pryla says, I might say physical training is the most important because for an officer to do their duty, it demands a high level of fitness. Such as running after criminals, escaping from the scene of the crime after breaking and entering or stealing some goods from a store or a shop. Okay, so Pryla, good start. Watch your grammar and explain yourself. Okay, so that's an interesting question. I'm sure there's a ton of training that officers need to get. Let me think of some. Well, they certainly need both physical and mental training, such as weight lifting, running, and psychological stress management, as their jobs are demanding for their bodies and minds. In a gunfight, the officers have to stay focused, and be agile and strong. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen, but unfortunately it does at some points in time. Here we go. Which types of training are important for police officers to receive? Again, speaking and repeating, everyone. Okay, so this is speaking, not just listening practice. Here we go. That's an interesting question. I'm sure there's a ton of training that officers need to get. Let me think of some. Well, they certainly need both physical and mental training, such as weightlifting, running, and psychological, like stress management, as their jobs are demanding for their bodies and minds. In a gunfight, the officers have to stay focused and be agile and strong. Okay? And they have to stay calm, which is very tricky. Okay, which of these is the most important and why? Give me a nice answer for this one. In my opinion, if I had to say, I would choose psychological training because, as the saying goes, brains over bronze. In a given situation, using their critical thinking would be the greatest advantage. All right. So keeping that one a little bit shorter and teaching you an expression here as well. All right. Kevin says, having a firm grasp of laws rather than combat skills is definitely most critical for police officers, as the general population is often law-abiding citizens and would prefer peaceful measures. In addition, understanding regulations and implementing them accurately would instill trust in society, as people have every right to keep the police's law execution under the microscope. Very nice idiom, Kevin, under the microscope. Under scrutiny, right? Very good. Yeah, Kevin, you thought about it kind of similarly as I did. So mind over matter, brains over bronze, right? Very good. Juan Pablo also taking the same approach. Juan Pablo says, I think psychological training is the most important because cops have to recognize the difference between a criminal and a victim. There have been a lot of accidents related to police officers. Yeah, absolutely. Again, right? So a police officer who is psychologically unstable can become just as dangerous as any criminal, right? Very good. Okay, good job, everyone. So this is what I wrote as well. Which of these is the most important and why? In my opinion, if I had to say, I would choose psychological training because, as the saying goes, brains over bronze. In a given situation, using their critical thinking would be the greatest advantage. Okay? And yeah, to hopefully solve conflicts in a peaceful manner without hurting criminals or the public, right? Ideally, that's what's going on. Not always easy to do. A lot of respect for our law enforcement officers. Definitely that would be my choice there. Okay. Excellent. So everyone, there's a few more questions here for you. You can kind of check those out, practice these on your own. You can always record your answers, send them to me. I'll give you a score estimate for your responses. If you'd like to do that, send your recording to adrian@aehelp.com. You can see those questions at any time by watching the video again and pausing the video in that part. Okay. Again, everyone, I will be back on Wednesday. So our usual schedule, we do not have classes Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but we have classes Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So until then, check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and glshelp.com for general IELTS. Lots of materials, HD videos, interactive courses, full practice exams on those websites, and you can even find speaking partners there. So keep up the good studies, and if it's late in your country, get some good sleep. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Much love to all of you. I'm Adrian, signing out from Central Europe for now. Bye.